It's Sunday, and that means it's time for another episode of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Before we jump into episode 73, the Dank Podstash is now officially sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. It's time to get Boogaloo ready and in fighting shape. Greg Papanikolaou is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. You can go to anarchyliftingcoach.com and learn more about Greg's work. When you're ready to get signed up and get fit, go to gregpapanikolaou.clickfunnels.com/opt-in and get started on your path to health. You can find those links in the description for this show, so you don't have to worry about trying to figure out how to spell all that. I'm in Project Sparta now. I'm down a few pounds already, more than a few pounds actually. I'm feeling great and loving the personalized menu and workouts. I'm back in the gym. It feels awesome. Tons of motivation outside of that in my personal life for the Podstash for all kinds of stuff. Get up, start learning, drilling, training, and the most important part of all this prepping, no matter what, is your physical health. Get to anarchyliftingcoach.com now and get after it. We also have a special offer for our listeners from friend of the show, author and content creator Shane Radliff of Liberty Under Attack Publications. You can take 10% off your order by using coupon code DANK10 at libertyunderattack.com. And you can get, with that discount, books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solution, and more. Current books include #Agora, Second Realm book on strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vonu, a strategy for self-liberation. They also offer assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook production. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom. Also, shout out to Bad Moon Hemp. Check out badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your handmade hemp needs. I use their beard oil and beard balm. They have more products than that, but that's what I use, and I love them. All right, let's jump into episode 73 with returning guest Dyreka Klaus.
Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Podstash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Podstash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Podstash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com. All right, episode 73 of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. We're rapidly closing in on that episode 100, which I'm looking forward to. Hopefully we can get all the guests with some little things, some little questions that I've recorded into a montage. But that's not here yet. And who is here right now is Dyreka Klaus. Damn it.
Yes, Klaus. That's
like I
okay.
said, the brain always wants to go to Klaus, like I was just saying. But Dyreka Klaus,
Right.
back again for the second time on the Dank Podstash. Happy to see you back. Also, author of Think for Yourself, a critical thinking workbook for beginners, which you're getting a lot of attention on that on
Yes, sir.
Amazon and stuff. I see you're getting some good stuff with this.
Yeah, it's had some really great reviews. I, of course, as an author, I'd love to see lots more good reviews, but I'm very appreciative of the ones that I have. And yeah, the response to it has been better than I anticipated, honestly, because when I wrote it, I just wrote it for my kids.
Sure.
And then thought, what the heck, I'll publish it in case anybody else was struggling to find something on this topic to teach their kids that wasn't lousy with the author's political opinions.
Sure.
That was the hard thing, was so many of the authors wanted to present their opinions as the logical conclusion of critical thinking. Like they were using the book as a platform to push their own ideas. And so I wrote one for my kids that had zero politics in it at all. Every example, like in logical fallacies, is just interpersonal things they might run into with their friends or just has to do with like interpersonal interactions. And, I try to keep it like that. So that was the whole point of it for me. So I'm surprised that it's gotten the response that it has.
I think it makes sense.
And I'm very appreciative.
Yeah, it's good. I think it makes
So,
sense because if you're not
very
pushing the
grateful for that
narrative,
response.
then you're actually pushing for people to learn and think critically because they're finding that route for themselves with guidance.
Right. And so the driving factor for me for writing it was I wanted them to learn the mechanics of it, like the mental mechanics of it, just free from any kind of pollution.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted them to know the steps, like the mental steps they could practice and take when they run into a problem in their life. And that's all it was. I just really wanted to get down in the weeds just with the actual process itself.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So that's,
people need to learn that, like I said, for themselves, maybe with guidance, because that's a thing that's lacking in the world, it seems like, everywhere. I think I probably brought it up the last time we talked about it, but when I was in safety and equipment training in mining, my partner, my other trainer, and I wanted to do a course on not critical thinking. What was it? I don't know. Pretty close to critical thinking, common sense. And it's like you can't teach common sense, but you can teach it in certain respects with what we're doing. So it just it's crazy the decisions people make.
You can
and the
teach a
routes they go
process
down.
that mimics it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good that that's out there, and then people are starting to use this in like what homeschooling, unschooling kind of stuff is what I've seen a lot. People are asking you about that, which is rad.
Yeah, definitely. And that's fantastic to me because that's exactly why I wrote it, or that's exactly why I published it. I guess was in case anybody else wants to use it with their kids.
Yeah.
It's not just for kids. And that's the thing. People are like, oh, is this like a babyish, like only for kids? And it's not. There's no illustrations or anything like that. I just try to keep the writing accessible for like tweens. So, a self-directed learner starting at about the age 10 to 12 can work through it on their own. Because I didn't use, any big like esoteric words or anything like that. I try to keep it really simple and really accessible for bare beginners in the topic. So really anybody can read it. It's not going to be like insulting to anybody's intelligence level. It's because I respect children's intelligence and their ability to take in information and process it on their own. So it's just, just kept in fairly simple language, but not at an insulting level, I don't think. So
for sure.
Anybody can read it. Yeah.
Awesome. So despite not pushing your own political or apolitical narrative in this, does it relate, like how does this relate to an anarchist way of thinking, the common sense that we find anarchy to be? Or does it?
Well, to me, the biggest thing is that a lot of where anarchists stand on politics and culture and things like that has to do with not just buying the pre-packaged agendas that are fed to you, to stopping and deconstructing it and not just believing everything you're told. Because if you do just believe everything you're told, you'll never be an anarchist. It's
Absolutely.
as simple as that. So to me, you can't really become a voluntarist or non-coercionist or anarchist, whatever term you want to use. You can't really become that without this skill. So it's a critical part of, who I am philosophically. It's not the whole thing, obviously, but it's a very, very important part of it. And I mean, people can use this skill and still not arrive at anarchy, and I understand that. And that's the other part. We all have our own worldviews and biases, and the only thing I mention about it in the book is that we need to be cognizant of the moment when our thinking process, when we reach the limit of our ability to apply logic, still don't have any kind of answer, and then we can apply our emotional filters, our biases. We just have to be aware that that's what those are, that we've made an emotional or a biased decision. And there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes there is no clean answer. And we just have to do the best we can to be the best people we think we can be. We just need to be cognizant that at that point, it's not a logical decision anymore. We've switched over because we hit our limit. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, my big thing with that then is that people do that, but they don't recognize it. And then they get mad at other people who don't arrive at the same place they arrived at. So just, there's a humility in that, in recognizing, yes, I'm a flawed human being. This is the best I could do. I thought it out the best I could. This is what I came up with. But in the end, I had to apply, an emotional decision to it.
Sure.
And even then, if you've used the logic and the critical thinking, even then, your emotional decision is likely, not guaranteed, likely to be a little more rational than it would have been if you hadn't applied critical thinking before making that emotional decision. So it's not about being perfect. It's not about any of that. It's just about doing the best we can. And doing the best we can means using every tool in our toolbox. So critical thinking is a very important tool in our toolbox.
Yeah, and that's good that you still integrate the emotional decisions, the emotional thinking and stuff along with critical thinking, because before we recorded, you were saying, not everybody, we can't just be emotionless automatons or, a fucking Vulcan, full-blood Vulcan, unlike Spock or whatever.
Right.
And I've been thinking about that a lot in regards to not only you coming on the show and us talking about critical thinking, but about decisions when it comes to politics, anarchy, anything like that. And I can't remember exactly if it was a study or if it was just a philosophical little snippet that I read somewhere, but it's interesting that if like logical thinkers, like scientists, people who try to disregard emotion and a lot of stuff are put in positions of power, it's a lot more brutal of a rule than people who think more emotionally. And that's really interesting because people want that logic, that solid decision making and stuff, but that does not lead to a lot of empathy either.
Right. And in my opinion, what's most important is striking a balance between the two. You can't separate humans from emotions. We are emotional beings. You cannot separate us from our emotions. And if you refuse to take them into account, you're then not making a rational decision because nobody else is going to separate themselves from the emotions. You have to account for it. When you're trying to predict human behaviors, you have to account for emotion. So to me, if there's like the culture or the community that you live in, if things are done too logically, it becomes very heartless and very oppressive. And then if you do things too emotionally, it becomes very chaotic and then also very oppressive. So oppression is at the extremes. When you try to separate human beings into like two separate entities, a logical one and an emotional one, and try to separate those two things, you're not looking at the whole human being. You're not serving the needs of your entire self when you try to do that to yourself. So because we have a need for both. We have a need for order that comes from logic. We have a need for the fuzzies that come from emotions. We need both, and they have to be in harmony and balanced inside of us. So, and I mean, we're never going to be automatons, like you said. We're never going to be these perfect creatures. So, trying to find the balance, treating others with respect for their balance, I think these are things that are going to go a long way towards, making our lives better in our interactions with others around us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, it also seems to come up in my thinking, my reflection on conversations with, say, ANCAPs versus I don't know, more left-leaning anarchists or libertarians and stuff, that cold decision making tends to hang out more on the right-hand side of things, despite people not liking the left-right labels for anarchy. It exists. They exist.
Paradigm.
People,
Yeah.
people,
It
people
does.
have those, and it seems like,
Because people arrive at it differently because,
yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the people
Yeah.
are looking. It seems like the ANCAPs are a lot more fans of just straight cold order, and this is the logical way to proceed forth
Yeah.
with economics, with everything, and it'll fix everything. And it kind of is like the that saying. What is it? If you're young and not a liberal, you don't have a heart, and if you're old and not a conservative, you don't have a brain. I don't know. There's so many
Right.
similarities in even anarchy with that, not just other politics, which is interesting.
Yep.
So yeah, you got to find that balance of
Right.
critical thinking and
But I
emotion
think
and empathy.
exactly. And I do think it's easier to accept it, to accept, other people's differences on that when you are a voluntarist or an anarchist, because honestly, I may think that the person I'm talking to is a complete idiot, but I have no intention of forcing them to live the way that I think
Right.
makes the most sense. And if they're an anarchist too, they have no intention of trying to force me. We can debate all day
Mm-hmm.
about what the smartest thing is to do about something. But at the end of the day, they can do what they want about it, and I can do what I want about it. And absence that coercion of the state that forces these opinions on people that they don't resonate with, there's really no problem. There's no conflict. There's just a difference of opinion, and it can stay there, and that's fine.
Right.
So that's my favorite thing about talking to other anarchists. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter because they're unwilling to force me, and I'm unwilling to force them.
Yeah, in a lot of cases.
So,
But that was going to be my next question too: is where's the disconnect in critical thinking here when you get people from either side? Let's say an ANCAP side saying that we have to eliminate commies because eventually they will come after us, or vice versa with anarcho-communists or whatever, saying we have to eliminate capitalism because eventually, or it is now slavery, as they say, and it will eventually overrun us. I think there's a disconnect in trying to prevent the future or predict the future. I don't think that's thinking critically.
no, I don't think so either. I agree with you. That's Minority Report stuff right there. I'm sorry, I don't I don't agree with the Future Crimes Division. I don't have a right to eliminate someone until they've tried to eliminate me. You know what I mean? Until you have proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt in person that you are trying to hurt me, I don't have a right to aggress against you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not aggression at that point, it's defense. Right. And that, to me, that's the big thing is maybe it's helpful when you're talking to someone to nail down the definition of aggression, because that's really what we're talking about here. Aggression is the initiation. When you're the first one to go after the other person, that's aggression.
Right.
And when they defend themselves from you, that's a different thing. That's not aggression. So to me, I like to pin down the definition of that, because people have just wildly different interpretations of that word.
Yeah.
So it can be really difficult
yeah, absolutely.
to connect with people unless you've pinned that down. And the thing is, a lot of people aren't willing to discuss something based on someone else's definition. It's like that first line in my book where I quoted Aristotle, and he said, it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. A lot of people can't just say, okay, let's run with your definition and discuss it from that perspective and see if there's anything we agree on, given that that would be the definition we're working with. That doesn't mean that you accept the definition. It means you're discussing the topic with the presumption, acknowledged presumption that that's the definition. And then you can turn around and discuss the topic with your own definition with them. It doesn't have to be either or.
Right.
Ideas are ideas. They can't hurt you. Just talk about ideas. It doesn't mean that you support them if you talk about them and think about them and discuss them.
It's a rare thing to find that willingness to follow a conversation down someone else's line of thinking stemming from their definitions online. Most people aren't interested in that. It's kind of a gotcha game, which really sucks. There's some good conversations, and then there's
Yes,
not.
it does.
But talking face to face is much better.
Yeah, and I'm totally guilty of it on occasion, because sometimes I'm not feeling it, and I'm irritated by something else that happened that day, or I have fucking cramps. I don't know. And I'm just I'm that imperfect human creature that sometimes my emotions get the better of me, and I'm not willing to do it.
Yeah.
But at that point, I'll usually just be like, I just don't feel like talking about this right now, or I'll just leave and forget the conversation or whatever, because I try to recognize when I'm being irrational. I don't always succeed, but I try.
Absolutely.
But other times I do make it a point to just say, okay, well, let's start at your starting point, and you take me through, what this means to you and what that means for this, and so on and so forth, because I want to understand your point of view. And so, and there have been a lot of times people have made sense to me, and I've changed my mind because I was able to do that. And there's other times that I was able to point out something that didn't make sense to me, and they realized, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense, and they changed their minds. But it's not, I don't find it futile. A lot of people are like, oh, talking to strangers on the internet is pointless. It's not. I've changed my mind because of talking to people, and other people have changed their mind because of talking to me.
Absolutely.
All you need is that willingness to step inside the other person's thought process without fear that it's going to somehow contaminate you, or or that it threatens you in some way.
Yeah.
Because it's not a threat. It's just thoughts.
Right. And like you said before, nailing down the definitions, figuring out what each other mean before continuing the conversation are very important, because people just start screeching at each other before that's even established. And then they're arguing two separate things. But yeah, that's the mess of the internet. But I wanted to circle back a little further to what you were saying about, oh crap. Of course, as soon as I want to do that, it jumps right out of my head. About aggression and what at what point you're actually defending yourself versus someone else initiating it, and when you have to wait until, like, when does the aggression start? Because that's a long conversation I've had with my buddy Daniel Johnson that hosts the Hot Tokes with me is, if you know that people are planning aggression against you, then it's not really smart to let them build everything up and just be on your doorstep ready to go. So are we planning and then meeting at the doorstep? Are there preemptive steps that can be taken? It's a question I've been wrestling with, and maybe you can help with that through your vast amounts of
and that's
critical
interesting.
thinking knowledge.
It's an interesting topic. I wouldn't call it vast, but that's interesting to bring into this topic, because it comes back to the same thing we were talking about before, where our rational and logical thought processes can only go so far sometimes. And sometimes we just have to listen to our gut. And so it's not something that's really easy to pin down in a rational, cold, logical conversation, because, and some people misuse their emotional, like, gut feeling, and some people are just way more scared of things than they need to be. And there's always going to be that messiness inside the human head, inside the human mind. There's always going to be that. So you can never count on someone else feeling the same level of threat that you would in that situation. It becomes a judgment call.
Right.
But to me, if I know somebody's, let's, take out government entirely. We're living in an anarchist utopia and all this. Let's say that, I know these hypotheticals always get fun, don't they?
Yeah.
But let's say that I know somebody's planning an aggression or some kind of action against me, and they're building up weapons and allies and things like that. Honestly, if I really feel that that's happening, my first step is to go talk to them. That's like my first step. What happened between us? How did this interpersonal relationship go so sour? What can I do to fix it? What is it that you feel like you need from me? Can we come to a compromise? if you want, some of my resources, maybe there's something that we can trade. I'm willing to be open with people and try to find a solution that works for everybody. So that's my very first step always. If somebody's got a problem with me, is to try to bust the problem open
Sure.
and look at what's inside of it and see if there's a way to, defuse it. And at that point, their response also determines my next step.
Right.
If there's just no willingness to do that, then yes, I feel like they're definitely going to be aggressing against me. And then I have, I have a chance to prepare for that. And they show up and actually do it. That's, to me, where I have the right to get violent with them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's a step
I
that
mean,
most people don't even think about, and I'm in my head right now is always the ANCAP versus ANCOM, ANCAPistan, ANCOMPTON,
right,
conflict. And it's just
right,
an inevitability, apparently, that one or the other side is going to come after the other, but no one talks about, building relations or trade or anything like that. As far as I know, commies wouldn't be averse to trading with the Ancapistan outposts either. So yeah, that's interesting that
right.
that just is not even in the picture when people are talking about this.
I know. And that always it always rubs me the wrong way that like the powwow isn't the first thing people think of.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's that it's an emotional decision on
It
my part,
is.
but it also, I feel like it's underpinned with logic, because to me, miscommunication is the biggest part of human problems.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really are willing to sit down with someone and be open, it's that defensiveness and the closed off,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like personal defense. People don't want to get taken advantage of. People don't want to get screwed over. I get that, but at some point, you have to open yourself up and hope that the other person can reconsider their position,
Right.
because you're so willing you're so willing to come to some kind of agreement with them.
Yeah. Well, and
um
we're not going to make it by
and I think
ourselves. It's that saying, "No man's an island."
no.
It takes the extension of that olive branch in most every situation, and building community or whatever, which is
Right,
another thing too. All these positions and ideas and philosophies argued online mostly, and even in debates live and face to face, is people seem to be searching for the thing that's going to work for everyone, and there is no one thing that's going to work for everyone, which is why different communities will
no,
form. So
no, there
that's
isn't.
a bad route to go down anyways.
Right, it is. And that's why I always feel like humility is one of our most powerful weapons for diffusing things like this. Me telling somebody, I just can't see that working for my life. This is what I feel like works for me. But what do you think? Is there a way? Because I don't know everything. I'm not sure. This is, I mean, with the best of information I have, this is what I want to do for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a better way to do this? Do you have some information that I don't have?
Mm-hmm.
Can we lay all of our information on the table and see if we can make some pairs out of it and some matches? And to me, there's a humility in that I think is really important, because I'm not perfect. I'm not,
Mm-hmm. No
I
one
don't
is.
have all the information. No one is. No one is. And being able to admit that and being able to verbalize it, that's the hard thing for most people, is communicating that.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to communicate to other people that I'm unsure and I don't actually know. I'm just guessing. But maybe if we put our heads together, we can come up with a better guess than either one of us already has.
Right.
To me, that would diffuse 90% of human conflict.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to apply this thinking to the Boogaloo context too, because we're talking about sitting down for the powwow, for the communication and seeing where the breakdown happened, and we're obviously past that point with government now. And I think it's because they're not willing to have that communication, that meeting to figure out terms.
Well, they have no incentive to.
No, it's their way or the highway, because
they-
they're in monopoly on violence, pretty much.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So they have no incentive. And that's honestly, that is profoundly the worst thing about government and why government should never exist. In my opinion, that is the biggest problem, because when human beings or group of human beings have that kind of power, they have zero incentive to treat anyone else with respect or with, with any kind of humility. They have no incentive for that at all.
Well, there's no vulnerability, and there's usually vulnerability of some sort, and that's not a bad thing. There's vulnerability of some sort in most interactions, and that's not a bad thing. People hear the word
that's
vulnerable.
Important, actually. Yeah. Not only is it not bad, but it's important, I think, to keep things peaceful. And yeah, government has no real vulnerability until you reach the level of something like war, like a Boogaloo, like something like that. That's the only thing that can make them feel vulnerable. And that's really what it's about, is making them feel accountable and vulnerable for their behaviors.
Right. And it makes me think of the term that our mutual friend Andrew Goff coined, the Boogaloo. There was no vulnerability from the government side there.
Yeah.
There was no making
He
them feel
didn't coin that. I coined that.
Oh, you coined
he stole
that.
From me.
the term you coined.
Yes,
I saw him say it first. All right. Well, congratulations, because that's amazing.
I put it in Telegram and he stole it from me.
That bastard.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
But yeah.
No IP. No IP. I don't believe in IP.
That's right. Pay royalties, Andrew, now. But that's...
Yes.
That's the whole peaceful Second Amendment, whatever, protests and stuff. There's no give and take there. There's still, the people going to those are still going by the rules that the government has put forth, that they put forth so that they would not be vulnerable at all in that situation. And there wasn't any pushback on that, which I was completely shocked by.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that people think that utilizing their rules is somehow going to make them feel like they're accountable to you.
Right.
That's not how that works. You use their rules, that you're telling them that you're accountable to them. So it becomes a big performative contradiction. Like, there's no way to peacefully protest the government and make them magically somehow realize that that makes them accountable to you. That's not how that works, because you did it their way. You do it their way, you're telling them that they're the boss.
Right.
And so it just seems utterly pointless to me, beyond pointless, because then you end up on a watch list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For your guns and.
Well, and that's the thing too. They take pictures, they record their surveillance of people at protests so that they can know who they are, just in case things do get wild, and they can go door to door and get people. I think figuring out when that point comes is also a thing that people are kind of hung up on, is, when is it going to be door to door? And it's okay until it's door to door, which I think is letting it slip too far.
Well, it already kind of is. Yeah. I mean, the red flag laws are definitely too far. That's already door to door, just based on, that is some 1984 shit. That is neighbors informing on neighbors with no evidence, and the bludgeons showing up and fucking killing people for owning an inanimate object that the state dislikes. I mean, I don't know how that didn't set it off, quite frankly.
Sure.
There have been so many things that have happened that I thought for sure were going to set off just a conflagration, like a huge conflict, and they didn't. So I honestly, I don't know. Nobody wants to be the first one. Nobody wants to stand alone. People need to feel like they have support, but the country is so divided in so many different directions. Our society is so fractured. I don't know. I honestly don't know that it's going to happen anytime soon because of that, because everybody's so fractured, and nobody can realize that we don't have to have everything in common
Mm-hmm.
to stand against a common enemy.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I do think it has to be organic. It's not something that can be pushed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that can be created. It's going to fall flat if people try. And that's honestly just going to reinforce the enemy's position if you do that. I do think the pressure isn't there yet. The pressure has to build. And then it has to be organic.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Looking at comments, I can't remember what police department it was that they served a extreme risk protection order, a red flag law. I don't know, not even a warrant, but they carried it out and they confiscated guns from someone. And looking at the comments on their page's post is like 90% people thanking them. Yeah, thanks for keeping us safe and stuff. And I think that's where I'm not really surprised anymore, because the indoctrination has worked from school forward. Police good, people they say are bad.
Yeah.
And there's the lack of what you're putting out there with your book is the critical thinking. These people aren't thinking critically when it comes to what this means. It's not keeping you safe.
And a lot of it is herd mentality. Like, I have this concept in my head. A lot of people would be like, there's going to be some of those people who are like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then they're going to go look at the comments, and all these people are praising it. And they're like, oh, well, okay, if everybody thinks this is a good thing, then it's a good thing. And then they put their praising comment. And people just aren't, a lot of people just aren't ready to build a sticking point and stick to it on principles and on things.
Absolutely.
They're just not willing to put themselves out there like that and to stand firm on a point that they think is important.
And that's a good point as well, as far as when you're going to these, like, because I know it's a thing to rally and bombard these posts with comments from anarchists and libertarians and stuff like that, and half of them are, fuck you bootlickers and stuff like that. But if we're thinking about what you just said about someone who's not sure, going there and seeing the positivity of the comments from the bootlickers, whether or not we should call them that in this situation, versus people screeching about whatever from, even if it's the correct side, it's a good point to think about, how should I comment here if I want to change minds?
How are other people going to see this?
Yeah, exactly.
When somebody who's on the fence comes here and reads this. So when I make comments on this post, I try to keep them, one, short, because attention spans are short. And two, I try to keep, I keep from like swearing and stuff. I swear a lot, but I try to keep it very like clean, right? And I try to make one profound or at least good point that would make somebody think about what just happened there. And sometimes I do it with a little humor. Sometimes it sounds a little snarky, but it's never like abusively, aggressive or anything like that, because I feel like that's going to turn people off. So to me, I find it more useful to keep it just really pointed, really brief, and not like aggressive. And if I can make it funny too, that's helpful. But I don't always succeed at that.
I tend to like in the comments where people are calling out cops, when people start calling them oath breakers, and have comments around that, because I don't give a shit about whatever oath the cops made to the Constitution or whatever, obviously, because it's not something.
But other people do.
Exactly. It's a middle ground. It's a meeting point, and that also makes me think of the meeting point when I'm talking to full-on statists, people who still believe in U.S. government and whatnot, and how to direct them. Most aren't comfortable with jumping straight to anarchy. And I love shitting on the LP, but it seems like a good place for some people to start. And as much as I hate to say that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to move through libertarianism and minarchism, and ANCAPism and all of that to reach I don't even like putting a label on it now, because it's just like, I just don't want to be involved in any of this collectivist, we have to do this, you have to do that. Just leave me out of it.
Sure.
And I promise I'll leave you alone if you leave me alone. Like that's basically my whole philosophy now.
Yep.
I'll help you if you ask, but otherwise I'll leave you alone if you leave me alone.
Sure. Yeah.
That's about it. So,
Yeah.
but I had to make progression through all of those. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not just, I had someone tell me the other day that if they couldn't convince somebody in 5 minutes, that they were done with that person forever. And I just, God, really? I mean,
it's a little
wow,
short-sighted.
okay.
I mean, who are you going to convince of anything in 5 minutes?
Yeah, I can't even convince my 7-year-old to eat what I cooked for dinner in 5 minutes.
Well, your 7-year-old's one of the wildest, most awesome 7-year-olds out there. That's one of my favorite things is following his progression on Facebook. He's a wild man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's like a little forest creature. He's so fun. Yeah.
That's a great description. Is he applying the critical thinking lessons well?
You know, he actually does a lot of times. It's funny. I've been raising boys for 18 years and still my boys can surprise me with what they can grasp and what they come up with on their own. So much of how children behave is affected by their parents. It's true. But we also need to remember that they are individual human beings and their minds are never going to work exactly the same way that ours do. No two minds work alike, I don't believe. And so it's always such a pleasure to me when the boys, especially Declan, because he's so young still, when they surprise me with something. And he's really good at that. Like his mind is always going a mile a minute. And he's picking stuff up from everything he sees and hears and putting stuff together. And he cracks me up. The other day, we're looking for a robotic toy on Amazon because he had a gift card from his Grammy that he needed to spend. And I told him, oh, this one has Alexa. And he's like, yeah, we don't want that. They're going to spy on us. And I was like, what? I've never said that to
Hell yeah.
I think he just overheard me and my husband talking about, I think the conversation probably started with like ancestry.com and the government getting warrants for the DNA information and talking about how they can get warrants for backdoors into, electronic devices that can listen. And he overheard a conversation like that in like very grown up terms. And he managed to pick just enough out of it to say, yeah, we don't want Alexa. That's going to spy on us.
Yeah. That's
like,
awesome.
He just turned 7. Yeah. So he just, he's just like this wild little sponge that runs around picking stuff up everywhere he goes.
Including dirt.
And I don't yes, including dirt, dog hair, lots of dog hair. Yeah. Yeah. The one thing he never picks up is clothes, though, apparently. That never happens.
It's so funny.
So.
Can't be tamed. But yeah, let's circle back to the Libertarian Party stuff because we were talking a little before we started recording, and I had watched some of their presidential debates in Florida last night, and I mentioned and we agreed that sometimes the Libertarian Party might be a good place for people to start off if they're extremely into being a statist or they're still a statist, however you want to phrase it, but. I don't see how the LP
and it's progress. Just like with kids, I celebrate progress.
Yeah, the problem I'm seeing is the party right now is a dumpster fire, self-admitted by libertarians, and I'm enjoying that very much. But I don't see how directing people to land there from Democrat or Republican at this point in time is going to help in any way. I don't see how much of anything they do is going to help. I don't
find it productive. No.
Like, what are you going to do? Someone says, we should own ourselves. We should be free of this and whatever. How do you do that? Well, check out the Libertarian Party if you're not ready for anarchy and they see 8 people on a stage, just arguing with each other and being ridiculous. And I don't care if they're wearing ridiculous things. I like the boothead look of Vermin, but that's not really
Vermin supreme.
So
right. Yeah, it looks, here's the thing. The Libertarian Party right now looks like chaos. And people already think that libertarianism and anarchy and all this equates to chaos. You're just proving them right and driving them away. And I'm not saying that the Libertarian Party or the people in it have any responsibility to anyone else, because they don't. None of us really have a responsibility to anyone other than our kids, really, in my opinion. Not when you break down what the term responsibility really means. But if you feel responsible towards your own philosophical position and you feel like you want to convince other people that it's sound and solid and a good place to be, you're kind of cutting your own legs off here. It's just, that's my only point. I don't think that you're serving your own ends when all this looks so chaotic. But I mean, it's up to you. Do what you want, but I just don't see it doing any good, honestly.
Right. Well, and I would honestly rather see them doing what they're doing now and being a dumpster fire than running, quote unquote, serious candidates or whatever. Because fuck that. That's just statism light, I guess. And it's also strange that how much of a draw that Vermin Supreme has had despite his theatrics, or maybe because of his theatrics. He's doing really well bringing people to that side of things. I'll be talking to his VP next month, and who else am I talking? Mike Shipley I'm going to be talking to about bottom unity. I'm bringing some Libertarian Party people on, despite how that makes me feel a little cringy, because I like the idea of bottom unity.
But you have to entertain a thought without accepting it.
Exactly, yeah. And just one of the things I'm going to bring up specifically with Spike is his idea of, people wouldn't listen to us unless we were in the position we are, running for president of this political office or whatever you want to call it, and we're telling them we want to give them freedom, and that was big red flag right there. Give them freedom. That's not possible. That's not a thing you can do through the state. So we're already
freedom is non-transferable.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't remember who the guy was that did that interview that was talking to Bernie or somebody else. It's a really famous YouTube video. It's like, if you don't have this right, how can you give it to someone else? And like, well, because I'm the government. And it's like, well, that's not true.
Yep.
Same thing.
That doesn't give you magical rights. That doesn't, yeah. And I know some people don't even believe in the concept of rights. That's probably a definitions issue again.
Right.
It always comes back to definitions, but
I always it makes sense to me that rights are social constructs because they're not anything tangible. They're not anything that nature enforces or anything like that. They're a way a community decides to live. It's pretty much the ethics or morals of a community, I guess. And people who look at that there's one objective truth, absolutely hate that, and I get screeched at quite a bit. But I'm open to learning more about it because I don't know.
Right. Like I can get where they're coming from on that and agree with the principles of it. I just define rights a little differently. I use the word differently than they do. Yeah. To me, a right is anything that I can shoot you for doing against me and not lose a wink of sleep over it.
Sure.
Those are my rights. If you violate that, I can shoot you and not lose any sleep over it because you were wrong and you had no right to do that to me. To me, that's what rights really boil down to, is what I'm willing to kill somebody over.
Right.
But I know that's different for everybody.
Right. Yeah. Even that's subjective.
That's very different.
And I think people.
Yeah, it is because it's what I'm willing to do.
Well, I think if people separate ethics from rights quite often, which is strange because it feels like it should be a hand-in-hand thing, and it's something that also makes it somewhat subjective. I mean,
right. I still talk about it a lot though, because these people that we want to reach, they all have this concept of rights as being a thing.
Sure.
So, I still talk about it a lot from that perspective because it's a way to communicate with people. It's like a communication channel. They understand the idea of rights. So I have to reach them through what they understand, not through where I'm at.
Sure.
So that's that's why I talk about it like that.
The term X or Y is a right is thrown around willy-nilly now, especially with the Bernie bros and healthcare is a right and things like that. And From that to abortion rights, which we talked about. That's kind of what predicated you coming back on the show, was our conversation on rights
That's
and
right.
who has them and abortion and whatnot. So we got plenty of time to dive back into that. So let's jump into that a little bit before we end the show, because I'm still searching for I guess a principled position on that hurts as little as possible, because I don't think with that existing, with abortion existing, which it always has, that no one's going to get hurt in any situation with that. There's going to be hurt from it.
Right.
So yeah, I guess I'll
and that's I like that you put it that way, because it's the same thing for me. I may believe that from conception that's a human being, and human beings have human rights as we understand them, as we talk about them as a concept. You know, the best we can understand that. That doesn't mean that I don't hurt for the women that are in that situation. And it doesn't mean that I don't understand the tragedy of some of these situations. I just believe that piling another tragedy on top of it is not the answer. I just believe that two wrongs don't make a right. You know, so that's kind of, it doesn't mean that I don't understand and don't have compassion and empathy for women that are struggling with this. I just, for myself, and again, this goes all the way back to the first thing we talked about, where I've reasoned it out as far as I can using logic and science and what we know of the conception process and the progression of pregnancy and things like that. I've got all that. And at that point, because there are mothers who are in this situation, it involves two people, and that's the big problem with this issue. It involves the rights of two separate people. And so how do you determine whose rights are more important? And for me, determining that that the right to life, to live, to not be killed, to me, I put the most premium on that right. Because to me, in my subjective valuation, which I'm willing to admit that it's subjective, that is the most primary right that all human beings have. If we accept rights as a concept, that is the most primary right that we all have. It's the most foundational one. Everything else has to come from there, because if you're not alive, there are no other rights.
Right.
So in my opinion, you know, the only time it's acceptable to kill another human being is when they are threatening your life, when you're defending your own life. And to me, that also includes things like, you know, stealing the last of your food and things like that. You know, you'll starve, whatever, anything that threatens your life. And I don't see, unless there's a medical condition like ectopic pregnancy, some of these other medical conditions. Some women have like extremely risky blood pressure conditions, or there's a pre-existing medical condition, or some women get cancer and they have to get treatment to save their own life that will end up terminating the pregnancy. Those things are tragedies, but it's not wrong, because every human being has a right to defend their own life. So a mother has a right to want to live and to take steps to make sure that she gets to live. And that is a tragedy. I know it's not the baby's fault, but the pregnancy is threatening her life, so she has a right to do something about it. On the other hand, when the pregnancy is not threatening the mother's life, I feel, in my subjective evaluation, that and it's an interesting question, because let's put rape pregnancies aside for a moment. When you have sex, when you have consensual sex, when you've consented to something, you are consenting to all the possible consequences and ripples of things that can happen from that. You have to consider all these things, right? It's like being an informed consumer. You have to know what could happen. We all know where babies come from. We know that sex makes babies. We know that birth control isn't 100% effective. You know, going into it, that getting pregnant is a risk of it, right? So you've already put your bodily autonomy kind of on the chopping block for the term of a pregnancy when you agree to have sex. in my opinion. You've already kind of thrown that into the ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, then it becomes like a convenience factor. Does the mother have a right to kill the baby because she doesn't want to spend the next 40 weeks pregnant and then give birth? And that's temporary. Pregnancy is temporary. You don't even have to be a parent. There's adoption. There's, all these other options. So really, all it comes down to is if you want to save yourself the 40 weeks of hassle and, and it is painful and it is a big deal and there's a lot of healing that happens afterwards. But if it's not typically deadly. It can be, but it's not typically deadly. We can't say that normal pregnancy is a risk to your life.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the right to live is always going to be more important than the right to not be inconvenienced. And I have to make a subjective evaluation because I can't prove that I'm right on that topic,
Sure.
because it is nebulous. It's a conceptual
Mm-hmm.
conversation about these constructs like human rights. But I feel that I'm always going to err on the side of not killing an innocent human being.
Sure.
Even if I can't say it's a person, whatever, I'm going to err on the side of not killing an innocent human being.
Right. And that's where it comes down to figuring out definitions, before the conversation and entertaining other people's definitions and stuff. Because that was our points of contention was my definition of a person or human being versus just a human life. I think there is a difference. I think consciousness or the capacity for consciousness makes a difference. But that was interesting too, what you said about consenting to all of the ripples after the act of having sex. I think that if you're being responsible and utilizing birth control, responsible, I don't know, that sounded stupid after I said it. If you're utilizing birth control, and then I think there's some leeway there because you may be consenting to that fact that you may be aware of the fact that it may lead to pregnancy, but you're also actively trying to avoid that. You're taking steps to do that. So where does that leave you?
Right. I can understand that point of view for sure. I'm a woman, so I've seen a lot of package inserts with birth control over my life. And that's something that I've had a lot of experience with the pill and the shot and IUDs and things like that. And finally now with my husband's vasectomy. But it's always in there that pregnancy is still a risk. To me, you can't not realize, that they tell you right there a percentage, like a failure percentage or percentage effectiveness of, how effective it is. So, you have this information going in that you're still taking a risk. That risk is still there. And if you choose to go forward, you're accepting that risk, in my opinion. And to me, that's just like everything else in life, and there's so many, all day, every day, we make risk assessments on things. We do the best we can. We gather the best information we can. But, things don't always go the way that we want them to. And for me, I don't feel that's grounds for killing someone. And I get what you're saying about consciousness making a difference. And I understand why you arrived at that point. And I understand, why that feels like a good kind of line to draw. And I can't say that you're wrong, but in my opinion, that's just like age discrimination. Because that person, that human life, given a couple weeks, will be in that same spot. It's still, and it'll be in that same spot with the same DNA that it had. It's just a different point in the developmental process. So to me, it doesn't matter how young a human being is, a human life. It's still a human life. It's still a human being.
I don't
Do you
disagree.
see what I mean?
Yeah, I don't disagree that it's a human life. I guess it's that cold logic that we were talking about before that may end up more violent than the empathetic part kind of taking over. But like you said, it's just a really messy, entangled situation with all the different subjective valuations and definitions and stuff. And that seemed like the most humane, I guess, if we can say ending any life is humane, would be to do it before consciousness. That's where I would put it. Like,
Right.
and I've come to this because I'm like, I gotta figure out where I'm at on this. I have to pick a point because it may affect me someday. It may not affect me. And that's the most humane point that I've found, as far as that goes. But I think the most important thing.
So like what you're saying is if it must be done, do it like in the first 6 weeks.
Right. Before brain function.
Right.
Yeah. And no matter what,
or 3 to 4 weeks, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. I think it's like 3 weeks is the general consensus, but like you brought up too in our conversation.
And most women don't even know they're pregnant.
Right. Exactly. So it takes even another level of responsibility, of checking, after, like after sex and leading up to that point a lot, getting yourself checked, things like that. And that's the thing, I think there is some value to, me not being a woman. So, who really cares what I think because it's not affecting me in that way. I think that it comes down to the person who is carrying
I know
the baby,
people say that, but I kind of have a problem with that concept. And that's it's never rubbed me the right way saying that men don't have a right to talk about this or have an opinion on it because it's her body. But it's his child. I mean, like,
you're right.
The issue wouldn't even be there without his DNA.
Of a couple, yeah. But as far as it's not just being a man, you don't have any voice talking about it.
Well, I mean, if you abandon the chick that you had sex with, then you've kind of given up your right to have an opinion.
But, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just saying overall, and that's the problem. That's what I was going to say was the main point is that trying to make decisions like this for other people on a large scale or even just for someone else is unacceptable. I think it's up to the person or the couple. But then, you also
and that's why I always say I'm never going to advocate for government to get into this.
Right.
I'm never going to advocate for somebody to have to do it my way. But I will talk about it because I really feel like it's murder. And I will try to convince people that my position is both logical and is going to be the least harmful to people's emotions.
Sure.
I'll try to convince people. I've talked women out of having abortions before.
Right.
I've done it like a handful of times and they all were so grateful afterward. They all were so happy that they didn't make that choice.
That's what the offers of advice, listening, empathy, help, all that stuff is what's more important than crying out about how you're morally correct in this situation and someone else is wrong. And the scary parts for me are I think calling it murder, even whether it is or not, is scary because that justifies physical action at that point. That's the thing that freaks me out because I've seen people on the right-hand side of Anarchy call for death squads for abortionists and people who have abortions. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. That's not okay at all.
And to me, you have to understand the mother's point of view too, that, I mean, the women who make this choice, the vast majority of them are terrified because they don't know what this is going to do to their life. They are so scared. And it's like somebody accidentally, handshaking pulls the trigger because they're afraid of someone that they miscommunicated with or whatever. You can't really be too mad at them for being that afraid. And I don't think it justifies violence when somebody's terrified. I think that we need to understand that the women that are in this situation, the biggest thing driving them is fear. And the fear is what needs to be addressed. And that takes compassion, and that takes support, and that takes love, and that takes affection. And this is it. So violence is the exact opposite of the response these women need in order to, in my opinion, make a better choice about this. So I try to live by where I stand on that and show like any woman that's in my sphere that I have access to and I know what's going on with her, try to show her this love and support and show her that it's not that bad. This could be the best thing that ever happened to you, and if it's not, there are other options. If you still don't want this, there's always adoption. I can help you. If you're afraid that you'll never have a break, bring the baby over and I'll watch them while you do something for yourself. Like, I'm there to support you. And you don't have to do this alone. Too many women feel alone and they feel afraid. And that's exactly why they make this choice.
And that, that's definitely the most important, is to make that known to people who are afraid that they can have support, do have support. I wanted to, real quick, we are running out of time. I wanted to bring up one more thing on this, and that's the part where you say, it's not my body, it's not my kid, and therefore I don't have any, I can't take any action to stop it or to prevent it, anything like that. And when you say that, it feels like there's a door being open to allowing a whole lot of other horrible things to happen that I absolutely would step in physically and stop. Child abuse on any level, that kind of thing. Even just someone kicking someone's ass on the street for no reason. It's like, there's such a weird line
to me,
here.
if I have a right, it's really odd, because a newborn baby, I would violently stop somebody from killing that baby. I think anybody would. Almost anybody would be willing to violently stop someone from killing a day-old baby. But back up 2 days and the mother wants to abort that baby, and people have no right to step in, and nobody would stop her from doing that. And I know most people who are pro-choice don't agree with abortions up to birth. But vast majority, yes. But there are some loud voices that in legislators, like in legislative bodies, and in media, that push for this to be legal up to, or acceptable. Not even, they say legal, but what they mean is acceptable. They want society to just ignore it, right? So to me, that's not rational at all, that if you back that child's life cycle up 2 days, it's okay to kill them. And that goes back to the same age discrimination thing that I was talking about. And to me, when we're talking about the age of an organism, their life starts, at conception, and then it's just an aging process. And I don't feel like we have a right to discriminate against them at any point in that process. So it's a very messy topic. You're right. It's extremely messy and difficult.
And this makes it's a completely unique topic. It's completely by itself for so many reasons, which is why it needs to be judged that way and on a personal level. And like you said, and it's most extremely important part of it is offering that support and love in the face of any of this possibly happening. But, if it still happens, I think the only acceptable, in my opinion, tool for dealing with it after the fact is, if you don't want to associate with them, don't associate with them. It's disassociation.
That's my
I don't
thing.
think you can hurt them.
Disassociation. Yep. No, I don't think so either. It's, again, because they made a knee-jerk decision out of fear, and and they were rejecting whatever you offered because it still just wasn't enough to get them past their fear. And at that point, I'm sorry. I think it's going to come back and haunt you. But I'm going to step away from it because I don't agree with what you did. And that's all we can do.
And I think we're going to end it because that's an hour, but that's a good place to end it. That was an excellent last, fireball of a conversation there. I'm glad to have gotten to speak kind of face to face over the internet and talk about it versus those text walls that we were throwing at each other, because Jesus, that sucks.
Right.
But no, I think we found some good.
But I will say that I'm proud of both of us for having a very civil conversation about it over text and in a Facebook comment thread. There were a few other people in that thread that were trying to make it more adversarial, but I think we kept things rather rather civil.
Yes, indeed.
So,
No, it was good.
yeah.
And I think we really hit the main point in that it's such a wild thing with so many different variables that it needs to be, case by case. And remember your place in this, because your place is not necessarily in somebody else's relationship or pregnancy or whatever, but your place is to offer love and support
Right.
to everybody all the time. So, yeah.
Mhm.
On that note,
Yes.
tell them where they can find your book and Anarchy Among Friends, and I'll have those links in the description as well.
Sure, absolutely. My book is on Amazon. It's called Think for Yourself, a Critical Thinking Workbook for Beginners. And you can just, to find it easier on Amazon, you can follow the link that Nick is going to put in the description. Or you can just type my name. If you know how my name is spelled, you can type it into Amazon, and that'll bring up my book. It's only $10. I think it's a great investment. That's, that's an easy $10 to spend, in my opinion. And I only get like 2 of that. Amazon gets most of that. So I didn't do it for money, just so you know. And then I do a podcast every other week called Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion. We actually have an episode that we're recording tonight.
Nice.
With Jason Booth and Andrew Guff. And that's always a fun time. That's more like, it's not quite as serious. Some of the things we talk about are serious, but it's a lot more like, it's kind of like a roast of, these news stories and deconstructing them for how government fucked everything up. So it's kind of fun. And you said you'll have the link for that too. There's a Facebook page. Yep. But it's on, you can find all of our old episodes on the Voluntary Agrarian YouTube channel. So yeah, that's where we upload to YouTube.
Nice.
And that's fun. Yeah. And I'm on Facebook and whatever. So
yeah. Reach out.
I'm around.
Good people to talk to. For sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on for another episode. That was fucking sweet. That was a lot of
Thanks
fun.
for having me on.
Absolutely.
It was good. Yeah, it was a great discussion.
Hell yeah, it always is. And we'll do it again, I'm sure, in the future. And for everybody watching and listening, thank you. If you haven't liked, commented, or subscribed, please do that. Thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. I don't care. YouTube takes all comers as far as that goes. And you can support the show on Patreon or BitBacker that you see on the screen there for YouTube, patreon.com/thedankpodstash. And remember, total freedom, no exceptions. See ya. Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash is sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. Go to anarchyliftingcoaching.com to learn more.
Zombie presidents, what anarchy! Zombie presidents! Zombie